Welcome back to Arise Business Global Business Report. Now, despite having a higher retail overhead cost, a report compiled by Moody's shows top banks in Kenya are more efficient than their peers in Nigeria, judging by their low cost-to-income ratio. This is also an evidence that it is more expensive to run a bank in Nigeria than in Kenya. While the top three banks in Kenya posted an average cost-to-income ratio of 49.13%. Funding cost for Kenyan banks stood 100 basis points lower over the same period, reflecting their wider access to retail deposits. However, the report claims Nigerian banks' cost-to-income ratios will improve as they increase their higher margin retail exposure, while containing cost as they digitalize their operations and limit branch and staff expansion. Now, 3 weeks to the end of the year, the quarterly reports on job creation and unemployment prepared by the National Bureau of Statistics have not been made available to the public, contrary to the usual practice in Nigeria. This has fueled concerns that the federal government may have withheld the data to avoid criticism. Experts suspect the reports were not released because the rate of joblessness in the country has risen above 40%. The last unemployment data and job creation report in the third quarter of 2018 showed the country's unemployment figure rising to about 23.1%. And Rise business analyst Chika Mbonu joins me in the studio for more on these stories. Chika, good morning. It's good to have you.
Good morning.
All right, let's start off with the Nigeria versus Kenya banks saga. So Kenya banks beating their Nigerian counterparts. What's happening here?
Okay, we have said this several times in this program that size is important, but size is not everything. The important thing always is what do you do with the size?
Good.
How efficient are you in running your size, in making profitability and returns to the shareholders?
True.
So one of the parameters that we use to, relative size is the cost-to-income ratio. Basically, it talks about how much for every 100 naira that you make, how much do you spend to make it? It's one of the parameters that you use to measure how efficient a bank is. So he's saying here that Kenyan banks are actually more efficient than Nigerian banks. So they make, for the equivalent of every 100 naira they spend less naira in making it than Nigerian banks. And so that's basically what is pushing, that Kenyan banks are actually more efficient than Nigerian banks.
Very good. Now, so what are the reasons for this better performance? I'm sure there's more to this. You've already explained part of it. So what do you make of it?
It says the cost-to-income ratio, basically the cost divided by the income, which means that the higher the income, the base, the less the ratio. Now, remember this ratio. The lower it is, the better for the bank. Because the lower it is, it means that the bank will make more profits and it become more profitable. So it's cost divided by the income. So if you want to make the ratio smaller, you reduce the income, reduce the top, which is cost, or expand the base, the denominator, which is the income. But let's look at Nigeria and Kenya, for instance. Let's look at cost, for example. The cost of doing business in Nigeria is more expensive than the cost of doing business in Kenya.
Yeah. That is a big deal.
If you look at even the ease of doing business rating, Nigeria is ranked at the last rating 121 over 190 countries, which we celebrated. Now Kenya is rated at 56. You can imagine
That's a big difference.
A big difference in that. Nigerian banks are confronted with so many problems. Remember, I'm looking at the cost. There are two aspects, as I said. Looking at confronted with so many problems. A typical branch of Nigerian bank here, you will find that it has about 3 generators to power the operations, compared to what happens in Kenya. So look at the multiplicity of taxes that are happening here. Look at the income levy the banks are paying. So the cost of operation of banks in Nigeria is very high. Now, but you pitch that against Kenyan banks also. The Kenyan banking industry has moved towards mobile channels, alternative channels. And several reports that put that the cost of a typical brick and mortar, which is a branch, is about 20 times higher than doing a transaction through alternative channels. a lot of Nigerian banks are latecomers to these alternative channels.
So there's more flexibility with
Kenya
fintech.
has been running their M-Pesa programs for more than 10, 15 years now.
Wow.
So I do recall that when I was in Kenya at the time, we were trying to push corporate banking. A lot of people said, no, it's actually retail banking that's the king there. Yeah. So that's the first thing. The mobile alternative channels that a lot of Kenyan banks have been pushing for a long time have led to the reduction in the cost of operation. A lot of Kenyan banks also have gone through what I call, using a lot of agency channels, which Nigerian bank are just trying to push now, and they've been running it for a long time. When you use agency channels, it reduces your use of human staff, staff that are on your payroll, and even the branches too. So that has helped the operation. The other thing, again, I'm on the aspect of cost, has to do with the banks in Kenya have less rigorous, provision challenges than Nigerian banks have. Now, let me look at the revenue side, the income side. The income side also is that the Kenyan banks have focused a lot on the retail banking segment of the market. In this segment of the market, the cost of deposits are lower. Indeed, the cost of deposits for Kenyan banks are 1% lower than Nigerian, 100 basis points lower than Nigerian banks. And the other thing that's happened there also is that the cost of, when you focus on the retail business, the net interest margin there are higher. So the net interest margin of Kenyan banks is about 8.5%. That for Nigerian banks is about 5%. So you can imagine the gap there. So they make more money than that. Nigerian banks are more focused before now on the corporate segment of the business. The margins there are very low. So you put all those in a basket, you will find that the difference in the business models so far has helped Kenyan banks become more profitable than us. Therefore, reducing their cost-to-income ratio lower than Nigerian banks are operating.
I guess from your summation, we're still newcomers on some segments of banking in Kenya. So if you take a look at in another way, the Nigerian banks in Kenya, how have they performed themselves?
Yeah, Nigerian banks have, in the expansion programs, have forayed into the Kenyan market. The first ambassador was UBA. UBA has been there, I'm sure now maybe about 10 years or thereabout. And then GT came in there also through acquisition. And then recently, we talked about in this program, Access Bank acquired a bank called Transnational Bank in Kenya. Kenya has been sort of a puzzle for Nigerian banks. They have struggled. You do recall, also we talked about when had the managing director of Guaranty Trust Bank here, we raised that issue with him. And he said that it was just like coming to Nigeria now with a single branch. You're going to struggle. And so they're trying to add flesh to their business by doing acquisitions. So it has been a mixed report. I think UB has turned the bend now. They're making profits and growing their business. So it has been a mixed report. I do believe that as they understand the market better, they will return to profitability. Very
good. Now, in view of this scenario, where do you see the Nigerian banks headed compared to Kenya's?
What's happening now, as we have said in this program several times, is that Nigerian banks now are pushing towards retail lending. In retail lending, the margins are higher. Hitherto, in this program also, we say that a lot of Nigerian banks are reporting the fact that their retail deposits are growing. Do you recall that the Kenyan banks, their retail cost of their funds is lower than Nigerian banks. So when you push more into the retail segment of the market in deposit, your cost of funds come lower. When you lend more in the retail segment of the market, your net interest margins go higher. So there's this push now by Nigerian banks into the retail segment of the business. That will help in growing their net interest margin and profitability. The other thing also is that Nigerian banks have been aggressive now in digitalization. Before, in the past, it was a fad for them to announce branch openings. That has reduced substantially. They're pushing a lot of their businesses through alternative channels. That will also help in reducing their profits. And with time, I do believe that we'll catch up or not, or beat Kenya in this scenario.
Hopefully so. Chika, let's go to other issues. Talking about the Nigerian jobs data, why, in your view, are jobs data so late in being released? We can recall the MBS has been quite effective when it comes to other aspects of the economy. So when it comes to jobs, there's a question mark here.
Well, I can't speak for the chief executive of the Nigerian MBS.
All right.
But he's one of the few professionals we have had in the government side of Nigeria.
Right.
And I do recall that at the time he has said that if anybody pushes him to push out data there that is not, that's not accurate or to corrupt the real data, he will resign. I do believe that he will keep that word. I have a feeling that data collection is very important. This is maybe Nigeria is a massive country too, so maybe one of those, maybe they have had delays in some things, which have led to this late release in the quarter 3 4 figures for unemployment.
True.
Whatever it takes, he is, very rightly connected to the IMF, rightly connected to World Bank, to Afrixim, to so many of the international agencies that use his data. I do believe that sooner than later the result will come out. I am more inclined to say that they would have had some structural issues and delays than trying to manipulate the figures.
Very good. Now, so why is it possible for advanced countries to release jobs data on a monthly basis? And just last week, we delved into jobs data for November 2019 in the US. So what's the issue here?
It's not too far away from the infrastructural challenges that we have. Do recall when we were pushing INEC, the electoral board in Nigeria, to do electronic voting. They said that in some areas in Nigeria, you don't even have connectivity. So it has to do with our landmass. It has to do with the infrastructural deficits. Even in our Abuja here at Federal Capital, one of the greatest nightmares is to make phone calls there sometimes. The rate of drop calls is so high.
True.
The quality of the data when you're even hooking up to this is very low. So I have a feeling that it has to do with the base which everything is being built on. The infrastructural deficits we have in our country, either it's power or it's telecom.
Very good, Chika. Now, over time, you tend to wonder the job forecast for Nigeria, as it were. Has it actually had any major or positive impact on planning towards reducing the size of the unemployment figure?
If you ask, I think this one area that Nigeria has suffered from lack of planning. I must say that. Maybe in other climes, other lands, you will see that we know how many people come out from the university every year as graduates, and there's a plan for them on how they will be employed. Those kind of things are missing here. For some of us who are involved in recruitment, put up an advertisement here for 10 vacancies. You get about 10,000 CVs.
True.
So it's a major problem for our country. Lack of planning on how to, put our people into job places.
Very good. And on that note, Chika Mbonu, I'd like to thank you for your thoughts on those issues. Good to have you.
Thank you.